Hello, good evening and welcome. This is Primetime News. I'm Nadim Majid.
I'm Sonali Wanigabaduke. Here's a look at your headlines first.
I resigned as a deputy minister due to pressure exerted by a UMP minister. MP Tissa Karulyada makes a revelation to News First. Full-face helmet ban postponed to April 28th following court order. Authorities exhumed the body of the translator who passed away while serving at the Sri Lankan embassy in Russia. Presidential pardon for young girl imprisoned for scribbling on the mirror wall at Sigiriya.
Starting off your news tonight, President Maithripala Sirisena has emphasized the need to place faith in local engineers when undertaking development projects. The President made this statement speaking at a conference in Colombo this morning.
The annual conference of the Institution of Engineers Sri Lanka commenced in Colombo today. The Institution of Engineers Sri Lanka, which boasts of over 2,500 creations in the agriculture, irrigation and engineering fields, is Asia's oldest engineering institution. MTV MBC networks were the media partners for the National Engineering Conference.
I was in Parliament for over 25 years and served as a minister for over 18 years. During 13 of those 18 years as minister, I worked together with the engineers. During the past 5 years, I worked with the medical professionals. After serving with engineers for 25 years and 5 years with the doctors, I was able to understand the difference between engineers and doctors.
The President also commented on the international challenges faced by the engineering sector.
It is paramount that we have faith in the strength, knowledge and expertise of the Sri Lankan engineers doing local projects, especially when it is connected to the country's development. Therefore, I need to announce that as the government's policy, we are adhering to every step in our policy to strengthen the Sri Lankan engineers. I was informed that there was a delay in the Engineering Council Act. I will look into this personally and expedite the drafting of the National Engineering Council Act. For this purpose, I will work with the Cabinet.
Still in the President's diary, President Maithripala Sirisena has initiated a new program to reach out to rural villages on full moon Poya days.
President Maithripala Sirisena is due to participate in religious observances at the Budumuttava Rajama Vihara in Nikavaratiya tomorrow in view of Bak Full Moon Poya Day. The religious program will be held from 8 am to 10 am tomorrow. The President's media division adds that the President will be visiting a rural temple in each district on each Poya Day to participate in religious observances with the intention of setting an example for a society complete with spiritual value.
On to one of our headline-making stories tonight. MP Tissa Karulyada says that he was made to resign from his position as Deputy Minister due to pressure exerted by a UNP minister. He expressed these views in an exclusive interview with News First.
Why did you resign as a minister?
Instead of good governance, what they are doing is suppressing their opponents. It is immensely harmful to President Maithripala Sirisena's concept of good governance.
Do you think that your resignation is a betrayal of the President, the chairman of your party?
No, I have not committed any betrayal.
But as you say, it is not suitable for others in the SLFP to accept ministerial positions.
No, that is each person's opinion. I have stated mine.
What sort of political situation are you hoping for in the future?
I hope to serve the people in my political journey. If they are hurting their opponents from the beginning, we cannot have any faith in that. We cannot have hope in them. Even we are being threatened now. 2 ministers threatened me when I was in that government. Who? I will reveal it at the appropriate time.
Will you reveal it to the country?
Yes, in the future. They are trying to take away the privileges given by our president. It is a UNP minister. When they do such things, how can we remain in the national government?
Was it only you who was pressured, or did it affect everyone?
I do not know if it was done to others. When the cabinet of ministers of the national government are together, such things cannot happen.
Now, members of the national government had this to say on Tissa Karulyada's resignation.
Even without the minister, the government is moving forward without any problem. we cannot say that it is an issue. Though he took a decision like that, it doesn't mean that the others are going to make the same decision. There is no impact as such in the government. Because he holds a deputy ministerial portfolio, how can we say that it had an impact on the government? These ministerial portfolios have not been discussed before our appointment. I did not know that I was appointed as a deputy minister until I went to the presidential secretariat. Some people might raise questions that a deputy ministerial portfolios given to certain people might not be adequate, given that they have served in the cabinet for years.
කටයුතු කරපු කෙනෙක් ආයේ නියෝජ්‍ය ඇමතිවරයෙක් වෙන්නේ මොකටද කියන ප්‍රශ්න සමහර අයට තියෙන්න පුළුවන්.
Minister Pavitra Vanniyarachi says that she accepted her ministerial portfolio based on the majority decision taken at the Central Working Committee of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party. She made this statement while assuming duties today.
Pavitra Vanniyarachi assumed duties as the State Minister of Environment today.
ශ්‍රී ලංකා නිදහස් පක්ෂයේ තීන්දුවක් අනුව
Today I assumed duties as the State Minister of Environment based on the decision made by the Sri Lanka Freedom Party and a decision that was passed by a majority of the SLFP Central Committee. During this period, I hope to be a pillar of strength to the party and also for the SLFPers.
අපේ පක්ෂයට විශාල ශක්තියක් වෙන්න ශ්‍රී ලංකා නිදහස් පාක්ෂිකයින්ට විශාල ශක්තියක් වෙන්න.
Well, staying in the political arena, former President Mahinda Rajapaksa met with a group of lawyers in Narahimpita yesterday. This meeting took place at the Abhayarama in Narahimpita, and the former president and the lawyers had discussed the prevailing political system. Subsequent to the meeting, Mahinda Rajapaksa expressed these views to the media. Officials who were serving during my tenure are being questioned. They are having media charades. They are enjoying it. Some of the state employees are 60 to 70 years old and retired. They are being taken in for questioning and they come out in tears. I do not think this is a good thing. The lawyers are of the view that the country needs to be saved from this situation.
Meanwhile, Western Provincial Councillor S.M. Marika criticized the activities of former President Mahinda Rajapaksa at a meeting held yesterday.
A
huge business campaign was carried out by a group to make Mahinda Rajapaksa the Prime Minister. Mahinda Rajapaksa is a good political dealer. Now he is trying to create a political deal and stop the investigations against the individual in their group. He is trying to show the power of the public through a deal with Maithripala Sirisena. I am sure that Mahinda Rajapaksa will not contest in the next general elections. He is working towards this deal.
The Sri Lanka Freedom Party's Youth Front says that the Nil Balakaya or Blue Brigade will not operate any further. Speaking to the media, the SLFP Youth Front said that the members of the Nil Balakaya have been afforded an opportunity to join the Youth Front.
As the Youth Front, we will not take forward the program of the Nil Balakaya. The youth who worked for the Nil Balakaya are the ones in the Sri Lanka Freedom Party Youth Front. We will recruit any member from the Nil Balakaya. In our Youth Front? Yes, he is a member of the Reconstruction Committee of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party Youth Front.
Welcome back to Primetime News. JVP leader Anurukumara Dissanayake claims that the government is acting contradictory to the aspirations of the Executive Council. The JVP leader made this statement addressing a media briefing held today. They have been unable to reach an agreement on the 19th Amendment to the Constitution, even within the government. A situation has also been created where people are not receiving the benefits of concessions granted through the budget. At the same time, we must consider the establishment of institutions intended to punish the fraudsters and the corrupt. We have seen a massive fraud taking place at the central bank. people who were defeated on the 8th of January, distasteful people who acted in a base and insulting fashion have been made stakeholders in the government. So the government is acting contradictory to the hopes of the Executive Council. We pointed out that this is completely in violation of the people's mandate granted on the 8th of January.
ජනවාරි මාසයේ 8 වෙනිදා ලබා දෙන ලද ජනවරමට පටහැනි බව අපි පෙන්වා දුන්නා.
The Sanayik added that the Executive Council reached several decisions today. Among the decisions was that maximum support would be rendered to ensure passage of the 19th Amendment on the 10th of April, in line with the determination of the Supreme Court. The Executive Council has also decided to introduce the Right of Information Bill to Parliament on the 7th, 8th, 9th and 10th of April, and to convene the Consultative Committee on Mass Media to discuss it. The Sanayik added that the Executive Council had also decided to appoint a commission to prepare an electoral system which fairly represents the people's choice.
Then,
it is in the President, but in the face of all of this, if the Prime Minister and President are saving face a decision on whether it will remain in the Executive Council, we inform the Council of this.
Petitions filed over the draft 19th Amendment to the Constitution were taken up once again at the Supreme Court today. The petitions were being considered by a 3-judge bench comprising of Chief Justice Kesri Pawan and Justices Chandra Ekanayaka and Priyasath Deb.
While some of the petitioners argue that the passage of the amendment will require a public referendum, others submit that a 2/3 majority in Parliament will suffice. Several factions made submissions to court today on the matter. The court will reconvene on Monday, where the bench has allotted an hour for the Attorney General to make submissions. The Supreme Court noted that they would present their determination to the President as soon as possible.
If it were not an urgent bill, then 3 days could be taken up. But I'm happy to say that after a long time, a bench has given us this much leeway and listened to our case. That is very important. If there is such an environment in court, then I can have faith that the future is bright.
When so many articles of the Constitution are being changed, and since it will affect the entire nation and all the people, it is important that we pay careful attention to it in Parliament.
The matter that is being specially debated is the wording of the sections that deal with trimming the powers of the President and transferring it to Parliament, headed by the Prime Minister. Both will share the people's power. What is being debated is how these powers will be shared and exchanged without undermining the sovereignty of the people.
Now on to a story that Newsfirst has been keeping a close watch on. The remains of the translator who died last year while serving at the Sri Lankan embassy in the Russian Federation were exhumed today. The order to exhume the remains was made after the Athnagalla district magistrate took into consideration claims made by the family that the death had taken place under suspicious circumstances.
Noel Ranavira, a translator attached to the Sri Lankan mission in Russia, died on the 11th of June last year. The then Sri Lankan ambassador to Russia had informed the relatives that the death was a result of a road accident. Noel Ranavira had flown to Russia to serve in a hotel owned by Udayanga Weeratunga and had later been employed as a translator attached to the Sri Lankan mission in Russia. The body of the late Noel Ranavira was brought to the country on the 15th of June last year, and his funeral took place on the 18th of June at the Valikadamulla cemetery in Athnagalla. However, later his family claimed that the circumstances of his death were suspicious.
There were no external injuries on the body. There was a small contusion on his throat. We were suspicious as to how his death took place. The death certificate that was given to us bears the signature of the ambassador. Since the day the body arrived, the ambassador too arrived, and there was security all over. We were not given an opportunity to speak.
The mother of the late Noel Ranavira yesterday had informed the Athnagalla District Magistrate Court of their suspicions.
The brother of the deceased, Dayaratna Ranavira, had visited the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. He has spoken to an assistant director there. The death certificate had been signed by the then ambassador to Russia, Udayanga Weeratunga, and also bears the seal. However, there is no number in the death certificate. Then, the Assistant Director of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs had claimed that such certificates are not issued by the ministry. He had added that if certificates are to be issued, they will bear the signature of the officials and not of the ambassador. The deceased had met his relatives, family and siblings and shown them a bank book claiming to have a large amount of wealth. He had noted that Udayanga Weeratunga had sold an aircraft and deposited the money in a bank account under the name of the deceased. He had said that he was engaged in a large-scale business and he did not need to remain there, and had also noted that he would be returning to Sri Lanka. I informed court that this individual has been murdered over the money that was amassed, or he was murdered over another reason.
Taking these facts into account, the district magistrate for Athanagala ordered this morning for the body to be exhumed. The body was exhumed in the presence of the acting magistrate of Athanagala, S. Abegunavardhana. Later, the body was taken to the Ragam Teaching Hospital for further examinations. Meanwhile, recently the Ministry of Foreign Affairs revealed that it has received a complaint citing that former Sri Lankan ambassador to Russia, Udayanga Weeratunga, had engaged in weapon deals with Ukrainian separatists. When inquired by Newsfirst, the ministry said that the investigation is ongoing. The ministry added that, however, after the election of the new government, no complaint of the death of Noel Ranavira had been received.
Court issued an interim injunction today postponing the enforcement of the rule banning the use of full-face helmets. While the ban came into effect this morning, the interim injunction was issued this afternoon.
The Court of Appeal issued the interim injunction today after considering two public interest petitions filed by two civilians. Lawyers representing the petitioners submitted to court that using full-face helmets gives added safety to motorcyclists. They point out that the ban that has been enforced via a police circular issued in March in line with the Gazette notice issued in 1991 pertaining to the headgear of motorcyclists is illegal and unjust.
The full-face helmet is the main safety device that prevents death in accidents involving motorcycles. It helps ensure the right to safeguard your life. That is why we have requested the court to not allow the police to take away that right.
Faisal Mustafa appeared in case 159 while I appeared in case 160. In line with the submissions made by us, the court decided to issue an interim injunction order postponing the enforcement of the police circular until the 28th of April 2015. Accordingly, the ban enforced today has been lifted.
The ban on full-face helmets was enforced this morning. In Newsfirst traveled the city of Colombo today. We found out that bike riders who are wearing helmets such as these, full-face helmets, are being stopped by traffic police officers around the city of Colombo. Now, after this law is enacted, what you will be able to wear are helmets such as this, but with a visor that is transparent. The police noted that rather than strictly enforcing the law from the outset, they would implement the rule in stages. Accordingly, while motorcyclists were stopped and advised, no fine or punishment was imposed. The police claimed that the ban was enforced due to the spreading virus of theft carried out by thieves wearing full-face helmets and the rise in accidents due to the reduced visibility.
Professor Dick Manotia of Hanna University in Germany conducted a study in 2010 along with other experts. The full-face helmet was designed on a scientific basis. They have marked the damage that occurs when motorcyclists meet with accidents. 19.7% of the damage is on the base of the neck. Almost 35% is to the face. Just because a bank was robbed or a finance company was robbed, they cannot make such cheap arguments to ban something that has been designed by scientists to ensure the safety of motorcyclists.
Let's take a look at some of the views expressed on social media regarding the full-face helmet ban.
The power of the meme. On to other local stories. Eran Wickramaratne, the Deputy Minister of Highways and Investment Promotion, says that there is no project under the name of the Northern Expressway. The Deputy Minister made this revelation while addressing the media today.
At this media briefing, details were provided on investment projects and road development projects. Speaking at the media briefing, Kabir Hashim, the Minister of Higher Education, Highways and Investment Promotion, said that the allegations made that the current government's development projects have been suspended are baseless.
රට සංවර්ධනය නාමෙන් පෞගිය කාලේ
In the name of development of the country, a large amount of money was used for the construction of roads and expressways. There was financial fraud. There were commissions being given. Racketeers were also involved. Work was provided to family and friends without following any proper tender procedure. We cannot follow that system. Therefore, we hope to formulate a proper procedure and follow it accordingly. There are allegations made that nothing is happening. There is no such thing. Some persons want to continue as they did by seeking their commissions.
එහෙම වැඩ කෙරෙන්නේ නැහැ කියලා දෙයක් නැහැ. මොකද සමහර අයට ඕනේ පරණ විදියටම අර කොමිස් ගහන ක්‍රමයට වැඩ කෙරුවගෙන යන්න.
Journalists also raised questions on whether the Northern Expressway and the Colombo Outer Circular Highway will be suspended.
උතුරු කියලා තිබුණානේ අධිවේගී මාර්ගය. උතුරු කියලා එකක් නැහැ දැන්. තියෙන්නේ මධ්‍යම අධිවේගී මාර්ගය.
There was something called the Northern Expressway. That is no more. There is only the Central Expressway. We are creating a system where the South, the Colombo Outer Circular Highway and the Central Expressway will be linked together. We are cutting down on the expenditure and the corruption. That needs to be wiped out. The section of the Central Expressway will be open for public bidding. This link will be based on the construction of the roads and public transport. The highway concept does not mean the construction of roads. We are providing a service to the people.
Meanwhile, in the recent past, views were expressed over alleged irregularities said to have taken place in the issuing of treasury bonds to raise funds for expressway projects. The Voice Against Corruption movement says that in a backdrop where an investigation is still pending, the statements being made by ministers are confusing.
These people are continuing with the work the old people used to do. When the people gave a mandate on the 8th of January, they demanded that those involved in corruption and theft be caught. What did they do instead? In India, our neighbour, when a train derails, the minister resigns. In democratic progressive countries, public officials and even heads of state admit it when they make mistakes and step down. The scale of the financial fraud committed by the governor of the central bank, his son-in-law and daughter, suffices to call for the resignations of both the Prime Minister and the Finance Minister. What steps has he taken with regard to his friend, the governor of the central bank? So if they continue this way, not only will there be larger scams in the future, for the first time since 1953, a foreigner will sign our currency notes. If the Prime Minister is functioning as the head of the cabinet, he cannot evade his responsibility. We must reiterate that the Prime Minister cannot evade the responsibility of taking action with regard to the central bank bond scam and re-evaluating and reissuing the contracts for the corrupt expressway projects.
The European Union has officially informed the Sri Lankan government of its decision to renew the proscription of the LTTE as a terrorist organisation at the 19th meeting of the European Union Sri Lanka Joint Commission held in Colombo today. This followed a decision by EU courts which had delisted the LTTE on procedural grounds.
At the meeting held earlier today, EU Ambassador David Daly met with Foreign Minister Mangala Samarawira and Foreign Secretary Chitrangani Wagiswara and discussed issues related to human rights, the recent ban on fish imports from Sri Lanka and the possible reinstatement of Sri Lanka as a member of the lucrative group of GSP nations.
The EU is Sri Lanka's single largest buyer of apparel, accounting for nearly $2.2 billion worth of exports in the year 2013-2014. Hugo Astuto, the acting managing director for Asia and the Pacific of the European External Action Service, had this to say on the issue of Sri Lanka's GSP Plus status.
The working group on trade and economic cooperation met here, and the EU and Sri Lanka started a process that may lead to the readmission of Sri Lanka to the status of GSP Plus under the EU's new GSP regulation. This may well take some time because as part of the GSP regulations, Sri Lanka must first ensure good compliance with 27 UN conventions on human rights, labor standards, environmental standards. To help with this process, today we have agreed in principle to set up a working group on governance, rule of law and human rights, and we look forward to the first meeting of this working group, hopefully later this year.
Newsfirst asked Astuto if the EU had achieved its mandate when it first pulled Sri Lanka's GSP Plus status in 2010.
What did you intend to see happen when you took away that GSP Plus status, and in hindsight, do you feel you achieved the objective?
Well, I suppose that's arguable, but it also belongs to the past. I mean, what's important now is that we focus on the future. That's why we have undertaken this conversation with the government of Sri Lanka. And, well, let's be hopeful and think that we can move forward.
I mean, it would be useful to analyze that situation in the past because it did affect 250,000 Sri Lankans who work directly in the garment industry.
No, well, the GSP Plus is a system which is rule-based, so there wasn't much of a choice. I mean, it comes with the commitment to ratify and implement 27 international conventions on human rights, on environmental standards, on labor standards. At the end of an investigation, which took quite some time, I think a year or so, it appeared that these conditions were not fulfilled, so there wasn't much we can do beyond simply suspending. This comes with the system as it is.
So your hands were tied at that point?
That's the system. We are a rule-based organization. We respond to our stakeholders, the European Parliament, European public opinion.
Now here at home, the young woman who was sentenced to prison for scribbling on the mirror wall at Sigiriya was given a presidential pardon today.
27-year-old Chinnathambi Udayasiri from Sittandi in Batticaloa was charged for scribbling on the Sigiriya mirror wall. Minister of Justice Vijayadasa Rajapaksa said that the president had signed the presidential pardon documents. The accused was arrested when scribbling on the mirror wall with a hairpin while on an excursion to the rock fortress. Subsequently, she was produced before the Dambula Magistrate Court where she was sentenced to 2 years in prison. She commenced her sentence on the 14th February and her mother had pleaded from the president to pardon her. My daughter was sentenced to 2 years in prison for scribbling on the mirror wall. We were depressed over this. The media spoke on releasing my daughter. Newsfirst made our voice heard.
We need to thank the President first and foremost. I also want to thank everyone who voiced their concern and helped release my sister.
The Pathfinder Foundation has entered into a dialogue with Nippon Foundation of Japan. The founder of the Pathfinder Foundation, Milinda Murugoda, met with Yohei Sasakawa, chairman of the Nippon Sasakawa Foundation, at their Tokyo headquarters recently to discuss collaboration opportunities between the two organizations. Incidentally, the Nippon Foundation is the largest private foundation in Japan. In the field of public health, Yohei Sasakawa has for over 30 years been dedicated to a global campaign to eliminate leprosy. Sasakawa has described the elimination of leprosy as his life's work and spends 1/3 of every year traveling around the world as a WHO Goodwill Ambassador for Leprosy Elimination, a position he has held since 2001.
Treasury Secretary Dr. R.H.S. Samaratunga says that Sri Lanka's trade to GDP ratio is not one that the country can be proud of. He made this statement at a forum organized by the Ceylon Chamber of Commerce on the Customs 24/7 initiative.
External trade transactions are the key source of further growth and economic progress, socio-economic progress in this country. At present, trade to GDP ratio is around 40%, which is not anywhere which we can appreciate or proud of. The similar kind of small nations of our size may have, the trade to GDP ratio in excess of, the 100%.
Also speaking at the event, Finance Minister Ravi Karunanayake noted that the Customs 24/7 initiative would help speed up transshipments in Sri Lanka.
I guess there's nobody that has said that this is a wrong process except for people who live on the system which was a failure and thinking that they were able to make something out of that. Now that we have opened, I want you all to ensure that we maximize this. There are a lot more to be done, but we need to have the system works immediately. If a transshipment takes 36 hours, why bring it to Sri Lanka? Even a bureaucratic India can do it in 24 hours.
On several prior occasions, Sports First revealed to the country through the Bitter Truth segment that the synthetic track at the Sugatadasa Stadium was substandard and that there were major irregularities in the contract. Confirming what was reported by Sports First, Sports Minister Naveen Dissanayake revealed today that a national crime had been committed at the Sugatadasa Stadium.
The Sugatadasa Stadium, established in 1983, is considered Sri Lanka's oldest and best international sports centre. The synthetic track was laid anew at the stadium in 2011. Although the track reportedly received an international certification, since there were discolorations, tears and bubbles in the synthetic track within a short period of it being laid, various allegations were levelled at the contractor and the technical committee. While the bitter truth revealed this information to the authorities, they opted to follow a code of lethargy. The truth of what sports was reported was further from today. Following an inspection tour of the stadium, the sports minister expressed these views.
You can see that even our children are running on this track and are in harm's way. We will take steps to lay a new track. What has been done here is a national crime. Such thievery has never happened in the history of sport in Sri Lanka. We will also take action against the company which did this. It will take a long time to get allocations from the government for this. Instead, we will take steps to obtain a loan from Bank of Ceylon to lay a new track and repay it with the income of this institution in 10 to 15 years.
And that's a wrap from all of us here at News First. I'm Sonali Vanigabadage.
And I'm Nadim Majid. Just a reminder that you can keep up to date with all the stories we're following here at News First by visiting our website, Newsfirst.lk. You can also find us on Facebook at facebook.com/newsfirst.english. Good night and good luck.